What's up, you guys? We are back with another community member interview. We've got Julian. Julian, you're in Las Vegas still, yeah?
Yeah, that's right.
All right. We got Julian out of Las Vegas, community member for how long? When did you join?
I joined February or March of last year, so a little over a year now, on and
Yeah.
off.
Yeah. Completely different life today versus back then.
hmm
As you guys might be able to tell from, I don't know what it's going to be yet, but the title or thumbnail, Julian and I are recording this interview now because he came in and he's been able to hit some milestones that a lot of you guys, as both appointment setters and closers, would like to hit. So we're going to kind of dive into a little bit of the process, going all the way back to February or so of last year, and show you guys how he did it. So, Julian, what were you doing before the community?
A few things, actually. Immediately before the community, I was working as a public speaker for different brands through an agency that I had been working with for 7 years. Great experience, traveled all over the country, and it was quite a hustle. I mean, as we'll talk a little bit about some of the ways that I made serial sales calls work.
Yeah.
But my background, my original professional background is in broadcast media. I was a broadcast journalist and television producer for about 11 years, and then transitioned into public speaking, and then started my own marketing agency. So, once COVID hit, over the course of 3 years, I was running that and realized that sales was the department in my own agency that I gravitated the most towards. I went about the business of figuring out how to make high ticket sales my full-time thing, and came across
Yeah.
you on Talk of all places.
TikTok. Okay, cool. Well, that being said, so you had tons of like public front facing experience. Was it kind of like second nature to you to like speak in front of people, or did you have to build up to that?
So it's interesting. Sales is a very public speaking lends itself to sales, but not in the way that you might think. In my latest offer, one of the things, the feedback that I've gotten from my managers is, and I've grown from this, and I'm much better at it now, is to be less explanatory and more inquisitive. Right, ask more questions than give answers, which is what a proper discovery is. For 7 years, I mean, that's all I was doing, is just giving information, right? On a stage for over 20 minutes, talking straight, not asking any questions. It's more, it's kind of the opposite of that. And so there were some challenges to kind of pivot and really adjust to. But as far as my comfort level in terms of speaking to people and speaking to, higher level executives and people that are a little bit more professional, that was something that I was already used to.
Cool. And you had been doing that for a while. You kind of like you like learned the skill, you built upon that within your career. You actually went and started your own agency. But like, how did you end up in pursuing the high ticket space? Like you mentioned, okay, I gravitated towards sales for my own business. That was my favorite part. But like there's so many different things you could sell. What pushed you towards the high ticket space?
That's a great question. So for me, I didn't even realize that my marketing agency was high ticket. I didn't have a concept of high ticket. I just knew that COVID was here and I could no longer give speeches. And my agency, the agency that had employed me for these public speaking gigs, was like, sorry, I mean, there's no events, what are we can't do anything, just kind of hold tight. And so it was really just, I started my agency as a way to just make money because I needed to make money from home. And at that time, everybody was online, and it just kind of like by happenstance sort of moved my agency in a direction where I was able to support myself for 3 years. And what kind of drew me to high ticket was I was sort of in the Iman Gadzhi's sort of SMM bubble in terms of my advertising, like the retargeting ads that I was getting just by the nature of me having an agency. And eventually I gotta credit you. I mean, I came across a TikTok ad, or it wasn't an ad. It was like one of your organic TikToks
Hmm.
about this concept of high ticket sales. And I always thought sales was like door to door. I didn't even realize that like my kind of sales was high ticket, like I said. And then I started looking into, serial sales, you specifically, just high ticket sales in general. I started researching other high ticket, sales offers, and I kind of became obsessed with it. And so, as you know, when we first got on our first sales call, I was interviewing with a bunch of like remote high ticket sales training companies. And, I feel like the conversation that you and I had seems the most normal and the most chill. Like I felt like I was just
Hmm.
talking to a homie. And so,
Yeah.
I kind of dove right in after that. But I gotta credit you because your piece of organic marketing was the thing that even made me realize that what I was doing was high ticket sales.
Interesting. You
Yeah.
know what, dude? I haven't thought about that in a long time, but the call that we had before you joined the community, I don't take the calls anymore because there's just not enough time in the day to
No.
fulfill the service and do that. But I remember that. I remember like you were, as most people are, like looking into a few different things, and I just got on there. I was like, yeah, that's what we do. This is how it works. Here's proof, and let me know. Like, I don't know. So it's kind of funny because the way that we run things is actually a lot different than a lot of the companies that people in the community end up in. And so I don't know. It's we just take a little bit of a different angle. But a lot of people come into this, and you've probably seen it, and they're like, high ticket sales, working online, it's a scam, it's a pyramid scheme, it's not real, it's not legit. Like, did you ever have that skepticism that a lot of these other people have, or uh, did you?
For a hot minute, I'll admit it. I think it's like a natural thing to. I'm a naturally skeptical person and inquisitive, and I just, always am questioning things. I thought it was like a pyramid scheme, to be honest. I didn't realize like there was a whole industry and real businesses that are solving real problems for people and for other businesses until I started doing my research. But like at first, yeah, I didn't. I was just like, this seems odd. I don't understand it.
Yeah.
And what they say in sales, a confused mind is always no. And so I was definitely a no
Mhm.
for a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, for anyone that's watching, just to kind of like set the record straight, I don't even like the word high ticket sales. It's just what everyone knows it as. But like remote setting, remote closing is 1099. You're working for usually what it is like online companies selling a product or service that's a little bit too expensive to send to like a checkout page or a buy now button. And they're usually running inbound traffic, whether it's paid ads, organic content, things of that nature. And so these companies, they're high cash flow, really lean businesses, very profitable. They hire 1099 sales reps because it's easier for them than W2. Okay. Like people can spin up these businesses super fast. And a lot of these, like down the road, when they get to a certain size, they will transition to W2. Not a lot of these, but some of them will. So if you're watching this and you're like, dude, I still don't know what high ticket sales is, coaching, consulting, agency services, B2B, B2C services, masterminds, boot camps, software, it could be a lot of different things. It's basically like the internet's huge. People are selling stuff on it. A lot of those companies need sales reps. And that's where Julian found himself. That's where everyone else finds themselves. So just to set the record for anyone who doesn't know what that is. Okay, cool. So you're traveling around a lot for work. You were like picking up, I know COVID slowed down, but then you were picking up gigs. And we were talking about this before, but like when you first joined the community, you were in the live calls, on flights. Like we had to reschedule some things, I remember, because we're working around an existing schedule. But talk about that transition from like I committed to the community because I did enough to know that I wanted to, did enough research to know that I want to try this, to going through that process of like familiarizing yourself with the industry, actually diving into it and starting to like get out in front of companies. Like what was that process like for you?
It was a hustle, dude. It was a hustle, man. Like just for context, so once we got as a society on the other side of COVID, work started picking up and I obviously was like hungry to make money. And so I was like, sign me up for everything. And just to kind of give you an idea of what, a September to April schedule would look like, I was on a plane and in a hotel every other week for a good 7 years on and off. And then, towards the end of that, I mean, I knew that I wanted to get out because I was getting burnt out in that industry. And there were days or events where, I'd get an email a couple of days before saying, hey, are you available for this? And of course I'm, hungry for money. So I would say yes. And I'd have a flight itinerary in 20 minutes for the next day and a hotel to check in that night. So it was a lot of that for a very, very long time. And so I just felt like I just needed something that I could have a little bit more autonomy over my schedule and not be in this literal, like, what is it, fight or flight mode, literally.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so, the transition, to answer your question, the transition away from that, once I committed to the community and committed to doing, what I needed to do. I mean, I was paying for Wi-Fi on planes and I was watching things on Ubers. I remember one of our group calls, I was waiting for the plane to take off because there was a delay and it happened to coincide with one of our group calls. So I thought, I have Wi-Fi on this plane. I might as well log on. And I had Zoom on my phone on the plane waiting for it
Yeah.
to take off. I remember one person commented, "Are you on a plane?" And I was like, "Yeah," because they saw that the plane was moving. And I was like, "I got to go, guys. I'll see you on the next one." So it was very much that. And, when I was at work, I was doing a lot of conventions and public events. In between speeches, I'd get off stage and, start digesting the learning material, right? The course material. On my lunch breaks, I would take calls on, after work, before work. It was just any pocket of time that I could have, literally in any place, whether it was a hotel, in an Uber, at work. Sometimes I left once I was ready to take interviews. I was in a suit, right? And so it's just convenient that I was like work appropriate. And so I would often leave work to go to a conference room to take a job interview. So I don't recommend people do that, but
Yeah.
it was definitely a hustle for sure.
Yeah. I don't remember super, super clearly because it was a while back, but when you got your first opportunity, was it this most recent one or did you have others before?
No, I was on another offer before this one that
Okay.
was a marketing agency for insurance companies, independent insurance and financial service firms, if we want to be more specific. And it was good to kind of get my feet wet in terms of what like appointment setting actually was, but it wasn't rendering the kind of commissions that I was hoping. And
Yeah.
I think because it was the first time that they had looked at an appointment setter, they didn't really have the systems and processes laid out and they were hoping that I would kind of build that. I didn't really have the experience to do that in this specific space, with the exception of my own agency, which I handled everything. So I again tapped into the community and eventually through the recruiter doc and just kind of networking, I found this opportunity, which I've been at for almost a year now.
Yeah. What did you notice? I'm trying to think of a good timeline to benchmark this with, but the role that you're on now that you've been at for almost a year, when you were going through the interview process with them, what was apparent to you or what made it clear to you that this opportunity is the one that you were looking for versus like the one that you were at prior that didn't end up being the one that you were looking for?
How extensive the hiring process was versus at the time the offer that I was on. I had one interview with my immediate supervisor at the time and then met the owner of the company on that same call. He just kind of walked in and said, "We'll give you a shot." And I was like, okay. I stayed there for a few months, then started interviewing. And I realized that even this specific offer that I was on was much more extensive than any of the other high ticket offers that I was interviewing for. I mean, we had 3 or 4 rounds where I interviewed with the hiring manager or the HR department. And then I did a role play with my immediate supervisor now, who's the coach, internal coach within the company. The fact that they had like a sales coach there was like amazing. And then I interviewed with the head of the department, the setter manager there. And I realized like the questions that you had recommended to me, like they were checking all the boxes and they
Hmm.
weren't afraid to answer the questions because I had a lot of them because you're very good. You're very detailed.
Yeah.
I was very grateful for that because I didn't even know what to ask, to be honest. And so I just ran through like 8 or 9 questions, dude. And I know it's probably overkill, but they were so willing to answer them that I
Yeah.
realized like, oh, they're not afraid of answering hard questions. And I just knew it
Yeah.
was every green flag that I was looking for. So I jumped on, and it's
Yeah.
been a good ride ever since.
From the outside looking in, I've never worked on either of those teams, but I have heard stories. And I remember the role that you're talking about now, the first one. We're comparing a company that's going to hire commission only sales rep because they have nothing to lose to see if something will work, right? Compared to a company that has an existing successful sales team with a sales coach that's doing multiple seven figures in revenue per month. Clear difference in potential, right? So for those of you guys listening, if you can't ask 7, 8, 10 questions to really nail down everything, how much revenue, how much cash collected they're doing on a monthly basis, I mean, you can kind of piece things together and hopefully make it make sense based on the revenue, the cash collected, the number of sales reps. But yeah, that's the biggest thing is validating the data. So let's talk about some ramping up. You went from, this is a big team. you start at the bottom, just like everyone else does, and you're working a setter position. You're dialing maybe not the most favorable leads, but how did you go from being the brand new, the fresh new guy to making a decent living on this team?
It was a process. I think I alluded to it earlier. I think my public speaking background, like I said, lends itself to certain aspects of sales generally, but I really struggled with like asking questions as opposed to just like selling, which is, I know it sounds like counterintuitive. We're salespeople, but we shouldn't be selling. That was something that I had to really work really closely with the internal sales coach on, who's, I mean, it was wonderful and very patient, and I mean, we were doing role plays every single day for over a month. I think once I got past that limiting belief, and also I couldn't ask people how much money they were. So for context, I'm on an offer that's a finance offer, and your financial qualification is part of it. And I had this limiting belief around asking people for money. I couldn't ask them like anything related to it. I was scared. I was nervous. And so once I got past those two things, things kind of just took off, and I started putting up real numbers, and the rest is history.
Yeah. Yeah. Now you're in a position. I mean, part of the reason why we're recording this is because, like, you've been here for almost a year. You've definitely, like, built the resume. Because for those of you that aren't in this industry yet, like, there's two main hurdles when you're getting in. Do you have sales experience and do you have industry experience? Now, Julian has both of those. And honestly, like, he can get any appointment setting role he wants. And as an appointment setter, we were talking before, like, personally, people on the team making 20 plus, like 20K as an appointment setter. Most people think like, oh, appointment setting, you make like 2, 3 grand a month. Like, you just don't, you got to get connected to the right offers. All right. But anyway, so like you've now kind of like established yourself in the industry, opening yourself up to like potential to go into closing. If you had to go back in time to February of last year, knowing everything that before being hired, after being hired, and it was like, all right, Julian, it's February 2024, you know, in 90 days, I need to do everything possible to like speed run to 10K a month, just like arbitrary milestone. What would you change? What would you do different? What would you condense? Like, tell me the game plan on how you would do that if you needed to.
That's a great question. I think the main thing for me is if I had been more willing to accept that this is a very different thing than I was used to earlier, I would have ramped up sooner. I was fortunate enough to be on an offer that values professional and skills development. And so they were very patient with me. But I think absolutely this is a very different animal. And, even within the set, like you still have to build a gap. You still have to ask good discovery questions. You still have to, pitch in a personalized way, and you're still selling, right? You're still closing them on the meeting, right? You have to sell the meeting, right? And so I think for me, I struggled a lot with applying the same thing that I'd been doing for over a decade to this. And I think that's part of the reason why after I kind of got through that and I started, putting up the numbers that I put up and doing well, some of the younger kids that were kids, I mean, whatever, younger people that would come in that had no like, they were unencumbered by their past, we'll say, their past career. They were just kind of like fresh and new and a sponge. They ramped up much quicker than I did. And so I think the main thing for me is to just like throw everything I knew about what I thought was going to work in this industry and just be a sponge, be completely coachable and be completely open to knowing that I'm surrounded by people that know more than me. So I should just like take it all in. I think that would have helped me ramp a lot faster.
Yeah. What do you think is something that you're actually better than most people in this kind of position at?
I think I'm pretty good at building rapport. Honestly, my background in journalism and just interviewing people in general, I think that's a big part of it, right? People need to trust you in order to reveal information about themselves. And that came very naturally to me in this role. I didn't struggle with that at all. It was one of the things that I enjoyed doing the most. It's just like getting to know people and understanding whether or not we could help them, right? What is their current situation? What are their goals? What have they tried before? And not doing it from a perspective of I need to knock out these questions on this list, but genuinely being curious. And that's something I've always been good at, and something I feel like that is something from my previous career that I've brought into here that's allowed me to sort of excel in the way that I have. And so, I can build rapport with the wall, man. Like I'm good at like just talking and doing so in an authentic way. I think the authenticity
Hmm.
with which I ask questions, people can sense that. Because if you're reading off a script, or if you're just too robotic, or if you just have a list of questions that you're trying to get through, like, people can sense that. And so just being curious and just building natural rapport, not talking necessarily about the weather, but like being curious about this actual person, because there's a live human on the end of this Zoom. And so,
Yeah.
or this phone call, if you're setting, and you just need to keep that in mind. And so I've always been able to do that, and I think I do that pretty good, pretty well.
Nice. Trying to think of any more inquisitive things to ask you. Is there anything top of mind? Like, dude, everyone that comes into the community comes in and they're like, I watched the interviews. I want to be one. When you were watching the interviews back in the day, because I'm sure you watched some of them. I don't know. Is there anything that you think would be cool to talk about that someone watching this might be interested in that we haven't talked about?
Yeah. I think for me, seeing you interview folks that were putting up, in my opinion, at the time, like crazy numbers, like 10, 15, 20K in like closer and setter roles, like I didn't even think that was possible. I think the thing that I would suggest for folks who are watching this now that say, they may think, in the same way that I did, that this is impossible, is to just throw that out the window. Like, all of your limiting beliefs about what is possible in this industry are going to hold you back. Like, you can do whatever you want and make as much money as you want. You just have to have the skill set to do it. And in order to get that skill set, you just have to be open to be a sponge, right? Be coachable and be curious. And I think if you keep those things in mind, the sky's the limit, man. Like, there's people out here putting up real figures working from home, dialing
Hmm.
people every day. So it is what you make of it. And so if you
Yeah.
just take that and run with it, you can do amazing things in this space.
Yeah, for just to paint like a little bit more perspective, obviously there's ebbs and flows in any business, but the closers on your offer, like the top ones, like what kind of monthly commissions were they ranging at?
Yeah. So on this offer, like you said, it's a 7-figure a month offer, right? They're doing about 3 mil. The closers are hovering anywhere between 40 to 60K per month. And the top setter there, not me yet, but the top setter there is pulling in 20K.
Yeah.
I'm
So
hovering around the 8 to 10K, but I'm
yeah,
trying to learn all their tricks and, make
yeah,
sure. That's another thing, actually. One piece of advice is, once you get on an offer, look at the person that's doing the best and like befriend that person, like, not in a fake way, right? Just do it in a way that makes them know that you're trying to better your skill set and you want to learn from them. One of the things that I did when I first got on this offer is I went into the CRM and I just started looking at the numbers to see who's putting up the most like sets that are closing. And I messaged this person and they ended up taking me under their wing. And I learned so much more from sort of like the tips and tricks that this person was teaching me, because they were in the role. And so
hmm,
that's another thing that I think ramped me up much more quickly. And one thing that I would have done earlier, I waited 4 months to garner up enough courage to be able to talk to this person, because I was just so intimidated. I would have done that right away, first week. So,
yeah.
those, I know I'm talking all over the place, but I just want people to
No,
know,
no,
like, there is a formula to this and you can absolutely succeed. You just have to be a little bit more strategic about it.
yeah. I mean, dude, for those of you listening who are like, okay, earlier in the video, he told me what high ticket sales is. I kind of get it a little bit more. And then you saying, yeah, top closers are making 40 to 60K per month. Like, that's real. Now,
Yeah.
that's actually like, it's very uncommon, obviously. Like, not every
Yeah.
team ever, and most teams, you're not going to make 40 to 60K per month. But when people have been doing that consistently for years, like, if they can do it, why can't you eventually one day do it if you pursue? And, that's a big claim. I'm not going to come in here and tell everyone they can make 40 to 60 a month, but these people are doing it. So,
Yeah.
sky's the
And
limit.
and it's one of those things that I wouldn't have thought that could be possible for me. I'm not quite there yet, but like,
Yeah.
I work with these people every day and I watch their sales call. Like, I watch every close that I set, or every set call that I put on a closer's calendar. And I've learned so much just from watching the closers and how they, run the call. And my views around money and what like it is and what it's possible, what to do, like, just because, like, not only I'm like with absolute killers and within the offer, but like the people that we're talking to are like professionals in their own right. And we're talking about, 6 and 7 figure portfolios that are just sitting there doing nothing. And I have to kind of talk crap about it in a way, like burn that bridge, and, just having the confidence to be able to talk to someone who has a million in the bank, not earning any yield, for example, being able to do that has reshifted my mindset around money and what's possible.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. What's like your next big milestone that you're looking to unlock? It could be a financial one. It could be it could be anything. Like, do you have anything in mind that you're shooting for?
I'm definitely shooting for closer roles. I think I got very, very lucky with this setter position that allows me to really develop my skill set as a closer eventually, just based on, the amount of work that's required within the setter role to put these people in the buying pocket. I feel like I can roll into a closer position at any other offer based on just me setting here.
Yeah.
So for sure closing, I definitely have my income goals. I think just like I said, seeing what was possible in this offer and, as I network within the industry and seeing what other people are making and just seeing what's possible, like I mean, I'm looking at 2030. I would love to be in that pocket of earnings in
Yeah.
a closer position. I know it's going to take some time, but like it is not impossible because I've seen it. So,
Hmm.
I'm shooting high, man.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's funny because like you're saying that today, but if we go back 12 months, you'd be like, wow, I'm going to be shooting for 20 to 30
Oh my god.
in a year. That's crazy, you know?
I can't
Um,
to even have that come out of my mouth. It's like, who
yeah.
am I? I'm like,
It's like,
it feels like I'm a different person from because I am. I see things differently. So
yeah.
again, I'll just say to folks watching this, like, don't limit yourself by what your current circumstance is. Like, you can do this. You just need to be in the right offer and surrounded by the right people that are teaching you the right things.
Yeah. Dude, I guarantee it, I'm talking to whoever's watching this. There's people out there that are in a really bad sales role. They're like, I'm good at sales, but I get paid $4,000 a month and I don't like it here. And if you just heard Julian say that these people are making 40 to 60K per month, appointment setters making 20K, and that doesn't piss you off, like you're probably not cut out to excel in this. Me personally, I would take I would take that personally, you know?
Yeah.
Like because that's my whole thing, and I think the best people in sales, they kind of like they have that chip, not a chip on their shoulder, but they're like, dude, I want to compete. If these guys can do it, I know that that's possible for anyone, and why not me? So last question I wanted to ask you is, feel free to go into as much or as little detail as you want, but most investments, like most people when they make money, they're like, yeah, S&P try to get 10% on a good year, 7% on an okay year. Is it safe to say over the last 12 months you have X your investment into the community?
You know the
Like
answer to that.
like you going for 10% or 100%? I don't know. Like so
Yeah, I honestly like if we rewind a year ago or a little over a year ago when we just go back to when, we first had our first conversation about me possibly joining the community. Like I wouldn't have thought I could in a month, set $100,000 worth of business. Like that's not a concept that I would ever think
yeah,
was possible, let alone, make what I've made. So yeah, I think in a year I've definitely 10x
cool.
what I've invested in the community, and it's paid dividends, then some. Like not just in terms of like income earnings, but just the people that I've
Yeah.
met, like within the community, within the industry, like on my offer. There's someone, or there's a few people that have come in and out of that offer, but just the relationships that I've built, I think I would not have been able to do if I wasn't a part of a community of people that, were on the same path as me. Just in terms of that alone, the networking, yeah, man, it's 100% worth it, 1,000% worth
Yeah.
it.
Cool. I know that was a alley oop question because I already knew the answer, but just I wanted to see your reaction because it's funny. Did you think about like, yeah, I have money, I'm going to put it into stocks. I hope it does okay, or you could just go learn a new skill set, get into an optimal industry, and push yourself higher.
Yeah.
For those of you guys watching this, Julian is in the community. You can connect with him there if you're also in the community. I'm going to ask him after we turn this off, but if he wants you or if he wants any of his socials linked here, we will do it. That's going to be down in the description. If he doesn't, looks like you just got to join the community. But that's all I got. Appreciate
Cool.
you, coming in, being an interview. It's always cool to see guys that come in. They're like, yeah, I watched the interviews and now we're recording an interviews.
Yeah. It's a full circle thing, man, because these interviews were definitely the needle mover for me to even just get on a call with you um, and join. So if anybody's out there in that position and you're considering it, I mean, Dylan has my full endorsement. Like, it's changed my life for sure.
Let's go, man. That's why we do it. Well, appreciate you coming on. You and I will be
Yeah,
in touch, I'm sure. But
yeah,
thanks
man.
you guys for watching as well.
Take care.